Hey there, what's up? It's me, Gazbot, for Gazbot in Japan. That's right, I'm combining day 7 and 8. There's some similarities, and I honestly don't have a lot of footage. I have a few pictures more than anything else, and so I'm combining those 2 days into one video, which still should not be excessively long. The other thing is, the little bit of video footage I did shoot on these days, as opposed to the still images, for some reason the sound is extremely low. So what I did was I kept running it through filters and upping the sound, upping the sound, upping the sound as best as I could, which resulted in picture degradation. So it's gonna be a little bit fuzzy, but I did the best I could so you can still kind of hear me. And then I'll do narration over the photos so that you don't have to look at them. Anyway, on today, 7 and 8 of Gazbot in Japan.
Hey guys, beginning day 7 of my Japan trip, you will never guess what I get to do. Laundry! Yeah! In this little teeny machine where it says that they are afraid they may temporarily keep my clothes or something. It was a little weird mistranslation of English, which you see a lot here. But it's about 8:39 in the morning. We have to check out at 12. We needed laundry. We were going to have the laundry service do it, but they charge about $3 for a pair of underwear, let alone $11 for a pair of pants, or I could spend $3 and $1 on detergent and do it myself. I suppose also dry it, so it'll be like $6 total, because we each only brought a week's worth of clothes so as to pack less, even though we're going to be here for 2 weeks. So that's what I'm doing. But once I'm sure that this isn't going to break or overflow or something, I'm going to go downstairs, walk back over to City Walk. We're at the hotel that we stayed at Universal, but it's the next day. So go to City Walk, get a Starbucks, come back, put it in the dryer. By the time it's dry, we should be able to get out of here. And then we're going to head over to Kyoto, where we're going to do the most touristy, well, I guess going to Universal is touristy, but weird for Americans to go to Universal here. And so we are going to Kyoto, where we're going to see some shrines, maybe the palace, walk around. Like, we don't have a specific plan. There's no stores, there's no events. It's just going to be some, ancient Japanese culture things. So yeah, this is not exciting, but I just thought it was worth mentioning, and I had a minute, so I'd make a little video to intercut with the still images and the videos I'll be making at home.
So yeah, doing laundry, if not exactly thrilling, was prudent to keep a minimal amount of clothing and things in our bags, especially if you're like us and planned on bringing back souvenirs and toys and things like that. And once again, here's the front of the hotel, the Universal Port, which was a little on the expensive side, but it did have some fun stuff going on. And if you're going to Universal like we were, you couldn't get closer. It was within walking distance, both of the City Walk and of the park. As I said, I put the laundry in, went and got a Starbucks. I did walk around a little bit, took some more pictures of that restaurant. They had a very heavy Tyrannosaurus theme. I guess it's supposed to be like Jurassic Park, but yeah, that makes sense because Universal Studios has Jurassic Park. Okay, I didn't actually get that until just now. And here's a cool indoor fountain. Like, yeah, I enjoyed this hotel. It was on the medium side of size. That was my breakfast. This was some sort of, I think it was a prank show or a reaction show. Didn't quite understand what was going on, but it was entertaining to watch. And then once again, our exciting rave elevator where we're underwater dance amazers. And I decided to take my dance amazing rave elevator to this floor. And what did I do? Well, I did my drying and used this dryer for only clothing as opposed to in America where we use it for things like pretzels and basketballs. And here's some more of those signs outside, which are very concerned with smoking and smoking etiquette. And I'm not sure if they're supposed to be comical or if they just seem comical to American eyes. But again, it's in English and Japanese. And then, my favorite being the one about, would you look behind you when you're going to fart? Well, you should look behind you when you're going to use a cigarette. But anyway, it was time to go to Osaka, and this is one of the typical train maps, which are very similar to New York City subway maps, so it made it fairly easy to navigate, even if you didn't speak the language. It was all color-coded and things. And these are all the trains, which I'm sure it's like this at other Universals. It just has lots of advertisements. I thought that was funny that it's still advertising Waterworld, even though like that movie didn't do well 20 years ago. And but there's billboards all over and cool trains that had the usual stuff like Harry Potter, but then it also had like Sanrio, Hello Kitty stuff. And it was, little things like that always are fun for me, whether I'm in a theme park or home, just like, oh, it doesn't have to just be a train. It can have Snoopy on it. Why not? It makes it fun, even if you're going to work. And this is the train. We were actually getting on the Shinkansen, which is one of their super fast trains. It's kind of cool looking, very like space agey. And trains are kind of a big deal in Japan, both in terms of getting around, but also like there's a lot more fans of it, I guess. People who collect it or into the engineering and stuff. Another awesome lunch with chip star and corn potage. I miss corn potage.
We just got to Kyoto from Osaka, and we're staying at Ryokan, which is sort of traditional housing. As you can see, the beds are on the floor. I think that window is fake. This seems to be sort of a hybrid, sort of kind of traditional, but very keen to tourists. It's funny, we've been here going on a week, and the people that work here have spoken the most perfect, immaculate English of anybody, even though we're kind of out in the suburbs, and it's like feeling like more real Japan, like looking at the buildings and stuff. It doesn't seem like Tokyo. It's kind of like, could almost be New York-ish, you know? And the people there, some of them spoke a little bit of English, but here, they clearly knew tourists were coming, because the guy, not only did he speak English, but he seemed to have a sort of American, or Australian, whatever, but like a Western patter of like, you know, hey, how you doing? Oh, we'll bring your bags up. Hey, no worries, you know. like, you know, he's clearly Japanese, but he's got the accent, he's got the slang, it's, you know, but anyway, I was looking around, and this place is pretty cool. It's probably perfect for us, because it's not authentic enough that it's going to be difficult. But I got here and I started farting up the joint. My farts have been really stinky, and I think it's because yesterday for dinner I had 3 large McDonald's fries, because that was all I could find, and I was tired, and that's just what I got. And here they're vegetarian, and they're not in America, so that's a nice little treat for me. But Q's in the other room, and when she comes in, I didn't want her to get a face full of pungent fart blast. And check this out. There's a little incense thing. Now, I typically don't like incense. It makes me think of hippies and my father growing up, and I just don't particularly like it. However, we are in Japan, and I did just fart the joint up, so I'm going to go ahead and give it a shot. Looks like I'm lighting the candle on a cupcake. Happy birthday to me in Japan. It's not my birthday at all, but I'm in Japan. I think I'm supposed to blow it out. Alright, let's see what it smells like. It smells like Earth Spirit. Or one of those hippie stores. It's not terrible. It's better than farts, I suppose. But barely, just barely. The other thing is the view out the window is of some cool roofs that seem to be fabricated for this area where we're staying, but are indicative of what I have seen as far as the architecture as we drove in. And this area of Kyoto, it seems to be the most like Japan, like in the sense of like samurais and like, you know, that kind of stuff. Whereas the stuff we've seen previously is more of like the pop culture toy stuff that frankly was what I was hoping for and expecting and wanted most. But this is like a little side trip to try to get a little piece of real Japan, or at least historic Japan. So I'm going to show you these roofs that are here, which are not as they're not real, but they represent this area. There you see this little area here, and this whole ryokan is pretty nice, very scenic. But then you look back there, and there's a parking lot. So it's not like we're in the middle of nowhere. So that's a parking lot with cones. Oh my god, the smoke is killing me. More proof that we're in a touristy ryokan. Phone, of course. And then this lovely tapestry, which covers our flat screen TV. And then this traditional bamboo casing, which houses an air conditioner. Oh, it's on. Good, because it's hot in here. Somehow there's a ladder in that box that we'll need in an emergency. I don't know what emergency that would be. I guess if we needed to change a light bulb immediately. I guess this is just a closet with extra linens and stuff. But I kind of would like to sleep in here. Oh, this is nice. Oh, that would be like a nice kind of coffin-y feel, in a good way. I know it sounds like I'm kidding, but I'm totally not. Here's just to try to give you a better view of the whole layout. It's pretty spacious. It's a little bit bigger than some of the hotel rooms we've been staying in.
So we got in, and this place was pretty cool. It was a bummer because it was pouring rain, so it was a little bit too much to go out right then, and Q was exhausted. I mean, we were both tired, but Q was exhausted where she immediately laid down on one of those beds on the ground. And here's the thing also, it was a really cozy place. Like, it had a low ceiling, and it seems like it'd be cramped or uncomfortable, but it was very snugly cozy to be in there. And I was tempted to just take a nap too, but I felt like I wanted to go exploring because I hated to waste even a second of my time there. And so I took these pictures just to give a better idea. This is before we actually got all our stuff in. Here I am contemplating going out. Q, do you think you'd like to go out with me? Oh, she's asleep with her DS not even being played. So I went out, and this is the area like between our room and the main like lobby, for lack of a better term. It was all decorated nice, but again, it's that sort of like made to look sort of traditional, but it's fake. It's a hotel, but we're right near stuff that looks like this, so it's probably the same type of techniques used to create some of it. But then there's like lights and an obvious more modern overhang. I keep going back and forth, and I definitely enjoyed it, but I also feel really cheesy having gone there. They did have umbrellas. Every place we went, when it rained, they gave us umbrellas, which was nice. So we didn't have to buy any. And this was me just walking down the street. I had no real plan other than to look around a bit and try to maybe find some food. I was a little bit hungry. I could really go for like a cup of tea or coffee. But it's sort of in a neighborhood where I was. So, I took pictures. I didn't really take any videos, mainly because it was raining. So even though there was nobody to stare at me and there was interesting things to look at, I had to quick snap it and then put it away. And I could see some temples off in the distance, but eventually I got to this sort of flower garden place, and there weren't like tour guides, and the signs were not always in English, and my Japanese is terrible. And so this is actually not even part of it. This was just between a restaurant and some other building, but there was this neat little thing. And again, here's some, temples. I don't know anything about these. I can't name them. I can't tell you the history. It was just like, oh, look, that's pretty, and took a picture. And honestly, that's how I tend to enjoy things like statues and, even to a certain extent, art museums, although sometimes knowing more about it can help you enjoy it if you're like studying it. But typically, if I'm at a museum or I'm at a historical site, I almost like it's dumb because like I don't want to wallow in ignorance, and I do like learning things. But there's something to be said for just walking around in the rain, looking at pretty stuff, and not worrying about who built this and why, and what's the historical significance, and everybody going oohing and ahhing at the tour. And I'm not, saying that's a bad thing to do, because I certainly have gone on tours like that. But I don't know, I just really enjoyed, being there. And it also feels more real, just me alone in the rain, walking around looking at stuff. It's like, that's something I'd do at home if I lived there. If I lived there, I could see myself doing this. This was a cool lake. And also, the longer I was out, the less people there were, because everyone else was like, well, we're going to go home. We don't need to be out in this rain. And I'm like, I do. There was a little bird there. I kept trying to get a picture of him. Here's a picture of me. He didn't take it, though. I took that of myself. It was a selfie, not a birdie. A birdie is not a thing. Well, I guess if you stick your middle finger. Anyway, there's a cool tree. This was a giant temple. I think it was called Chiodori. There's a sign coming up in a second. There it is. Oh, Chionin. I was totally wrong. Again, I don't know much about it, except it was gigantic. And you can see there were scaffolding, so they're working on it, so I couldn't get any closer than that. And this is when I sort of came to the end of that area of like the park and the flower thing and a few temples and stuff. And I saw this gate like leading out into what looked like a downtown, so I just went through it. Like I wasn't using the GPS or anything. And then I could see again further on there, it looked like maybe it was getting a little more urban, but there was this little like river stream. I mean, it was more than a stream, it was a river, but there was art installations in it like this. Now, I don't know if this is something that's always there or if I just happened to catch it when some artist did it. And, it seemed like there's more than one artist too, but they were all set up in the water. Well, not in the water, but above the water, so you could see it. And again, it was just like this surreal thing of like, oh, I wandered out of the temple and look, here's a little art show in the river for me, like, and again, I don't even know what most of this stuff is supposed to be, if it's supposed to represent something, if it's, or if it's just more abstract. I mean, this one looked more like little lilies or something, so some things were like that, but it was just a really fun time walking around, and it wasn't until much later that I started getting nervous about not knowing where I was. But yeah, I enjoyed. I don't want to say I enjoyed getting lost, because I didn't even get lost that much, but I enjoyed the near getting lost experiences I had, and I enjoyed the adventures of just sort of being out there and not knowing what's going on. I found this little indoor mall thing, but everything was closing. I was all excited. I'm like, oh, I'll get some food or something. But alas, no.
Hey, so it is still day 7. I'm still on my first day in Kyoto. And Q was taking a nap, and I decided to go for a walk. It was raining a little bit. At the ryokan, they gave me a umbrella, kasan. Anyway,
I took it and started walking around, and there's like a whole little like shrine village area. I'm gonna get closer because it's loud. And it was great because everybody was leaving, so it was sort of just me wandering around by myself in the rain, taking a few pictures, which I really enjoyed. Now it's coming down really hard, and I was sort of heading towards the manga museum, which may or may not be open. It's supposed to be a 30-minute walk. I've been walking a while, and it's still 30 minutes away because I got turned around and started looking at shrines and stuff. But I ended up right in front of a hobby shop with models and Godzilla and Ultraman and some Gundam. So apparently my geek sense is strong, and I end up here whether I intend to or not.
So while my nerd senses may have got me there, it was closed. So these are pictures from the window. There's a Gundam, and there was a Godzilla, and it was super bittersweet. Of like, I kept finding things like this. I'm not sure who that is. It kind of looks like Hokkaido from Kakaido, but painted weird, and that's like a dark Ultraman. But yeah, then I left there and I crossed a bridge over a more significant body of water than previously. It was closer to a river. Like if I fell in, I'd be afraid for my life. And there were some cool statues, and I started taking some statue faces like that. Oh, there it is. That's so you can see that was not exactly like the little babbling brook I was traveling on when I saw the art show. And I was still sort of aiming for the manga museum, but I found this other indoor mall, much bigger than the one I found previously, still open. It was like a real mall. And keep in mind, it was like 5, 6 o'clock. It wasn't that late, so it was weird that everything was closing. But I guess that's because I was in like the suburb, and this was more of the downtown. And I saw this Kamen Rider, which is Masked Rider in America back in the 90s. They had a movie in the theater, and I was like, what? And like, I didn't end up going to see it, unfortunately. But just the idea that you could just see that kind of stuff in the theater was exciting to me. And they had all these crazy Gashapon machines. That's Tokyuger, which was the current Sentai, which is our Power Rangers. I didn't buy one of those, which I kind of regret when I see a lot of this stuff. That was a lamp store. This, I believe they were airsoft or some sort of toy gun, but they looked so realistic. I couldn't believe they could get away with selling what looks exactly like a shotgun. Here's some more Kamen Rider. Looking at that now, those are about $2 each for little minifigures. I should have just got a ton of them. Another movie I was excited about, Pat Labor. It's like a robot cop thing. Caricatures. I was tempted to get one, but it looked so much like an American caricature. It would have just, whatever. I do caricatures for those that don't know. That was a cool arcade, which I did not go to, but I took a picture of. And then I left, and I was trying to get back, and I saw this other slot machine thing. And right about here, I started to get a little nervous.
Hey, it's Gazbot back in the USA real quick, just stepping in here. So when I went on my little walkabout, I ended up like messing up. We had a portable Wi-Fi, which we had gotten at the airport, which was a great thing to have and allowed my phone to work as a GPS and internet and things like that. And Q was back at the hotel, and she had the Wi-Fi of the hotel, or the ryokan. And somehow I messed something up, or I wasn't getting signal. I was trying to figure it out, and I saw a button that I thought was a reset, like a reset a computer, or reset a router. And I hit it, and it stopped working. So my phone was no longer working. I couldn't do any translation. I couldn't do GPS. I couldn't do anything. Couldn't even make a phone call. So that was great. Now, luckily, it still functioned as a offline phone, and I had taken pictures of like the address where I needed to go and things like that. But on the way back, I got lost. And I never got like crazy lost. Like I was still in a city, and I had walked. So how far could I really be? But it was like a little bit panicky because for a few reasons. One, I couldn't get in touch with Q. She didn't know how long I'd be gone. She didn't know where I was, but I couldn't even text her to say, hey, I'm fine. And if she was like panickedly calling me, I wouldn't be able to know, And there weren't like pay phones, and even if there were, I didn't have great luck using the last couple times. And so it was a bad situation, mainly because of lack of communication. But here's the other thing. It was getting dark. It was a weeknight. Things were starting to close. So I was like, oh man, at some point I'm going to run out of options as far as someone to ask or whatever. And so I tried to take a cab home, to the hotel, and it was pouring down rain and everything. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to take a cab. It can't be that much. And I got in, and, again, using my little bit of Japanese to sort of say hello. And then I sort of showed the screen the address I wanted to go to, and I'm like, I want to go here, and they're like, I don't know where that is, and I'm like, okay. I'm like, what? It was, it wasn't the street address, it was the name of the hotel that I was staying at. But again, it was like, it's not a regular hotel, it's a ryokan, which is like an old-fashioned, like, feudal Japan kind of, thing. It's like, it's not a small thing that if you're in that town, I would think you would know what it was. And I knew I wasn't that far, but he couldn't figure it out, and we kind of tried to talk to each other, and I showed him my phone, wasn't working, and eventually it was like, we both sort of said, I'm sorry, I got out, and that was it. Walked around for a while. I tried to ask a few people on the street, but nobody seemed to know where it was. It was really weird that, like, no one knew where it was. Like, I understand that it's a touristy thing, and I understand it's always hell, and so locals wouldn't need to stay there, but you'd think they'd know. Like, there's a theme park near my house. I don't go to it, but I know of it. I know where it is. I've at least heard of it, you know, and even the people that spoke a little bit of English were still like, sorry. And eventually there's I can't remember the name of it, but there's like cop stands, police officer stands, on certain street corners in cities, and they're not allowed to leave the box, supposedly. And I encountered them a few other times, and this was something that was talked about in the book, the Tokyo Underground. And it's, you know, supposed to be sort of a good go-to. They may or may not speak English, but they, you know, can help you. And so I was asking someone, like, is there a police? They're, oh, go ask the police. And so there was a police box. And I went there, but there was no one in it. And I'm like, there's no one in it. They're like, that's weird. There's always someone in it. You know, so I go and I'm waiting and I'm waiting. I waited like 20 minutes. No police ever showed up, and there was no number to call, no button to press or anything. So I was like, ugh. So I started walking down the street, and it was a street I didn't recognize. Like, again, I didn't get really far, but like there's stores and things are starting to close. So I'm like, oh, what am I going to do? And so I try another cab, and it's the same thing. We can't really communicate very well, and I'm trying to show them, and they find, and I have a phone number of the hotel, but when they call it, because they have a phone that works, so when they call it to get directions, I'm like, oh, I'm so smart, and they're like, yeah, Bungoshi, you know, telephone number, whatever, and then what I think is, whatever, it doesn't matter. And they call it, but I kind of figured out that it was like a main line. Like when you call Chase Bank, but you're not calling the Chase Bank down the street, you're calling like the global number. So they called the number of some like hotel company or some, you know, it wasn't the place down the street, so that wasn't helpful. And then they're like, well, I think maybe it's down here. We could just drive down here. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, actually, I think it's really close. Like, is that okay? Like, you might be paying to go like a mile. That's fine. I've been walking in circles, you know? And so we went, and it was like, if I just kept walking down the street that I was walking down for like another 5 minutes, I would have hit it. But it was just like a weird angle in a street I hadn't been on. But they got me there. I gave them their fee, and I gave them a couple extra bucks tip just for putting up with my silliness as the American idiot, you know. And I got back in, and Q was like, "Oh, what the heck is going on?" And I'm like, "Oh, I messed up the thing." And she's like, you messed up the thing," because like I had apparently not reset it where, you know, it reset it and reinitialized whatever, but I had reset it from when they set it up and gave it to us. So it was no longer recognizing my phone. The passwords weren't working. It was like as though it was on the shelf in the rental agency and not yet assigned to us, so we couldn't use it. There was a number on it to call to like get it fixed. When I called it, it was Japanese only, and there's no way you're talking to tech support. I mean, even if I was better at Japanese, I think it still would have been difficult. So, like, she's getting mad at me and like, well, you've ruined this, and how are we going to get another one? I mean, this is like our lifeline, and it really is, you know. Especially when we're in like the more rural areas, or the, you know, like if we didn't have a functioning phone, we would be in a lot of trouble sometimes in terms of knowing where we're going or things like that. Not that we'd be physically in danger, but you know. And so the next morning I got up and I went downstairs and talked to one of the people there who, you know, spoke English pretty well. And I tried to explain, I said, hey, we have this thing. There's a number, but when I call it, they only speak Japanese, and I can't, you know, they're like, well, what's wrong? I'm like, I think I accidentally reset it. And so they were like, they helped me, and they seemed a little bit reluctant, but understandably, you know. And I'm thinking, like, man, I mean, the customer service and everything in Japan is amazing, and they go above and beyond all the time. But here I am essentially saying, hey, can you sit on tech support with someone for an hour and walk through this thing? And I'm like, this might be too much. You know, hopefully they could do it, but it might be too much of an ask. But I forgot that because the service is so good in Japan, they called, they get on the phone, they have a live person within like a minute. And they're like, oh, fixed, doop, fixed. Gave it to me, set back, works great. I thanked them profusely. I don't think I gave them, actually, you know what? I don't wonder if I gave the taxi person a tip, because you're not supposed to tip. But now I don't remember. I might have been lying. I know if there was a tip appropriate, I would have given it. But now that I think about it, I don't think there was a tip. So I just think I just paid them and thanked them. Thank you, you know. And they laughed at my terrible Japanese pronunciation. So that's the actual story. I was lying a minute ago when I said I gave them extra money, because that would have been impolite. And so similarly with the person that helped me, I just thanked them very much. But it's lucky that because the service was so good, they were able to literally do technical customer service within a minute or two and get it solved. So that was good. But anyway, back to things.
So that night we did go out for dinner. This is the outside of the place we went, right near our hotel. Hatanaka Gyon was the ryokan. And this, you can see, it was as traditional a place as we could find. I mean, it's fast food, but it looked like the kind of greasy spoon I'd eat here in America, but the Japanese equivalent. And this is yaki onigiri, which was my favorite food I had there. I've had it since I've got back. It was still pouring rain. We went for a little walk back. It was very close. And then this is me taking a nice little foot nap. Going to sleep, sleepy time at the Gyeon. But yeah, it was delicious, and like they had Japanese TV on, and there was not even a hint of like tourist friendly, which was great. And then this is me. They gave us these outfits with the little tabby socks and things like that. You can see I'm eating my granola bar breakfast with some random tea that they gave us. And the idea is, oh, you could wear this sort of traditional dress and walk around town, and while you're looking at the, you know, temples and things, but it seemed like kind of cheesy touristy. However, it wasn't too cheesy touristy to pull my best Tommy Oliver karate pose while I was in the room. So yeah, I dressed up and took a couple pictures like I was cosplaying, but I didn't actually leave the house. Now this is the most genuine picture because I was actually having tea for breakfast, and that's one of my favorite pictures. This was the view outside of our window from the bathroom. As you can see, Q was modeling. She was not using the bathroom, but modeling there. And of course, we had Wi-Fi, as I said, so it was very touristy. So this is the next day. It wasn't pouring rain, it was drizzling. We actually had to check out of the hotel, but we stayed in the area. They held our bags, which is something we did a lot. Like, can you please hold our bags and come back and get them later? And we went to just explore the area that had all the temples and shrines and things like that. And I saw a lot more than I did the day before, and Q came with me, thankfully. So once again, we weren't on a tour. Not everything had a plaque, and the few things that did have a plaque, it wasn't necessarily in English. It was, you know, just pretty. You know, it was just a lot of pretty stuff. And I'm not real into architecture or history or things like that, but you can't deny that it was like an enjoyable place to be. And I actually kind of liked that it was a little drizzly rain. There weren't that many people again, and you know, even putting aside the art part of it and the history part of it and the architecture part of it, it's just like a nice area, you know, it's just like a nice park, and there's lovely trees, and, you know, like, I don't know, I wish I lived near something. I mean, I guess I do live near parks, you know, but it's just a nice place. And again, you know, it's drizzling and things like that, but not so bad as the day before. And they gave us free umbrellas, and then we had the plastic poncho things we had gotten from Fuji Highlands, which Q used. I did not. I usually just wear a hoodie when I'm in the rain. And yeah, there's significance and names to all of this. I cannot help you with it. And some of these pictures are similar because Q and I duplicated them. But it was a good time. We were probably out there for an hour or two, I think, before heading out and getting our bags and moving on to the next hotel. This was sort of a main front area. That red building area was sort of right next to our hotel, which is the thing that I ended up finding after my little misadventure the night before. But here you can see I'm much more calm about it. But yeah, so this was sort of the entrance slash exit, but there was a couple different ways in and out, and it was very much like sort of there may have been paths you're supposed to take, but there was also a lot of winding around and, you know, doing whatever you want. And here I am posing as another samurai with my umbrella, and once again, lions in the front. There are a lot of cool statues and a lot of cool fixtures and little what look like post office mailbox things, but I think they might have been for tribute. Again, I'm not really sure. Yeah, this was like there was like a little village row, and it was nice because we could go in, and I guess you're supposed to give offerings or something, but it had a little roofs, so we would take little breaks from the rain in here and then head out again. And this was a gigantic building. Yeah, the more I talk about this, the more I realize how little I learned. Like, this is a big one. Here's a little one. That one had a roof. But it's all pretty and worth seeing. I'm sure other people got more out of it in terms of learning things or whatever, but I don't know. I liked it. Like this right here, this was one that's pretty. Like, that's just like nice, you know? Like, you don't necessarily have to understand everything about something to appreciate the beauty of it. I guess I'm making a weird argument for ignorance is bliss, which is not what I'm intending to do. I wouldn't have mind learning more. Anyway, after that, we went to have some lunch. This place was like a noodle house. It wasn't as good as the Aki Onigiri place. It was a little bit more touristy. It was upstairs, but it was good. You know, it was sort of something that you might find in the U.S. In a like Japanese neighborhood. And these are more decorations outside as we head out after getting our bags onto the next hotel, which is more of a traditional American type hotel.
Hey, it's Gazbot. It's day 8. We are in Kyoto. I'm still in the ryokan. And we've checked out already, but we're using the restroom, picking up our bags, and we're about to go to our second hotel in Kyoto. And I'm going to show you the traditional electronic door opening that they have. Oh, look at this traditional door. It's so lovely. I wonder, how do you open it? Is there some latch or... Wow, it really is not open. You need to have your wife go near it, and then it electronically opens.
So as it turns out, the hotel we were going to next was pretty close to this indoor mall that I had walked to the night before. So I had almost walked to our new hotel, and I went back with Q. We spent a lot longer there, and I just took a few extra pictures. You've already seen most of it. They had a Shakey's Pizza, which we actually ate at, which a friend had recommended, and Q got herself a nice pair of walking sneakers, which she still has a year later, so that's pretty good. And this was just some cool stuff on the way back to the hotel. But we also stopped in the mall area and got some hot chocolate, coffee type desserts, and this awesome cookie stuff. I don't even know how to describe it. We just sort of pointed and picked. I loved it. Look at me.
Well, there you have it. A lot of stuff, a lot of things, a lot of Japan and Gazbot in it. Coming up next, day 9. I know I end up in Ginza at some point, so,